guys, it's Russten with United Outdoors. For the past 2 months, I've been working on super specific arrow builds for different purposes, trying to achieve one with very high FOC and all the advantages that come with it, and then one that was superior in structural integrity. And today we're going to walk through both of them. We got the VAP SS from Victory Archery. This is going to be our heavy hitter, really similar to the extortions that we shot last year. I've actually got one right here in front of me. It's basically like the brother of the extortion. It's got the stainless steel mesh inside of it, super ultra tough, but it's got a lighter grain per inch in the same spine. So we're going to be able to bump up our FOC and get some hopefully better results. This was just an absolute hammer, complete pass-throughs all day, every day, but I wanted to increase my FOC just because I think it'll help. So we got the VAP SS, super awesome arrow. And then I'm super excited about the RIP XVs. These really piqued my interest because in a 250 spine, they're only 8 grains per inch, which means that I can beef up the front of it. It's going to be appropriately spined, and I'm going to get the total arrow weight that I want with an extreme FOC, and we'll see how those fly. I've already spent probably about 2 months building these arrows exactly to what I wanted, with the exact components, the exact feathers and fletch, the exact nocks and everything. I've spent a lot of time kind of diving into this and then getting it exactly what I want for both arrow builds. And I'm going to bring you along and build some of these in front of you so you can see what we're doing. Here's an arrow that I've already built. This is what we're going to be building today. It's the RIP XV. I've got a 4 fletch and white feathers. I've got a nocturnal nock and reflective wrap on the end. And then I've got a 260 grain meathead, Tuffhead, and a FX Archery spinning insert. So these are really like my pet project that I'm really excited about, and it is a mean joker. I mean, the balance point on this is like way up here. It's almost funny where the balance point is. So what we're going to do is put this to the side, and then we're going to build these arrows. Alright, got a fresh pack. So this is a 250 spine arrow, and the one big advantage and what lured me to this arrow, the RIP XV, is the super light grain per inch. There's only 8 grains per inch of the shaft compared to the VAP SS in the same 250 spine. That one has 10.8 grains per inch. So you're saving 2.8 grains per inch that you can shift to front end components, and that's going to boost up your FOC and be better overall for the arrow. So these shafts come pre-fletched, but I'm actually going to take these fletchings off. There's nothing wrong with blazers. I actually recommend it if someone says, hey, what kind of fletching should I use? I just say blazers. They kill more deer than anything else, and they're super reliable, bulletproof. But for this little project I've got going, I'm going to use some white feathers. They're naturally right wing, and then I'm also going to put a offset of 3 degrees on there with 4 fletch. So it's going to ultra stabilize the arrow, even though with this amount of FOC you could actually probably shoot a bare shaft and be fine. These fletchings are not going to be something that I depend on because of the ultra high FOC, but there's some advantages to them that I think are worth putting on this arrow. If you're into nock tuning, I recommend using the 4 fletch because that gives you 4 different orientations that you can spin your arrow and still have all your clearance and everything for all your cables. If you nock tune before you fletch, then it doesn't matter, but I'm wanting to just build these arrows and then do some post tuning afterwards. So I really like all white. I think it looks clean. It looks good going through the air. You can really see it, especially in low light. White just shows it really good. We've got lighted nocks on the back as well, so you're not going to depend on seeing the fletch, but I think white just looks clean, so we're going to go with white. Now, in order to strip the blazers off this arrow, you want kind of a dullish knife. You do not want to damage the carbon, so just be very careful in taking this off. Don't cut too deep and get into the shaft. Just take the blazers off, and then we can get the excess off later a little bit more carefully. Alright, so that didn't take long. Now we've got a bare shaft. I'm going to take off this excess, and then we'll be ready for the wraps. You want a dull knife because you don't want to cut the carbon, but you want to be able to scrape off all the excess glue. You can kind of feel it. Don't put too much pressure down on the shaft, but just kind of work it back and forth, and you'll see all the adhesive come off. All right, now we've got a perfectly clean shaft, and the next thing we're going to do is cut the arrow. In order to find exactly where you want to cut this shaft at, I recommend going to your bow, coming to full draw, and having someone help you by taking a Sharpie and marking exactly where you want the shaft to end. I wanted it to end around midway where the riser is, because I'm going to have some pretty big inserts that will stick out over an inch further. So I personally like my arrow to end at the end of the shelf of the riser. So what I did is I came to full draw. I got my wife to get a Sharpie and then mark exactly halfway in the middle of where my riser is, because this sticks out another 1.25 to an inch, somewhere around there. And so this is going to go about halfway. It's going to stop right there, and you're going to have this much more than when you cut. So just keep that in mind. I wanted this part right here to be at the end of the shelf. So I marked it to the middle, to where this is going to stick out a little bit and end up exactly where I want it to be. So I'm going to be using an arrow saw to cut my arrows. What you want to do is, if it's not already set, loosen your length adjustment, and then put your arrow down and figure out where that mark is going to hit the saw blade. Move your adjustment back and forth until you find the exact spot, anchor it down, and then cut it, and you'll be good. My arrow came out to 29.5 inches, and it is now cut. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our wrap. So one thing you want to avoid with high FOC arrow builds is arrow wraps, but since I'm using the feathers, that's going to allow me a lot more play to put some extra weight on the back, and it's not going to affect it as much. I know that putting weight on the back is exponential in decreasing your FOC, but I really like these reflective wraps, and I cut them down as short as I could to where the veins still have contact with the wrap. I personally think a wrap looks cleaner, and it gives a good surface for the veins to bond to. So in this circumstance, even though I'm trying to get the FOC as high as I can, I decided that a wrap was worth it, especially with saving weight on the veins. You would not believe the difference in weight of a feather versus a vein. I had no idea that it was so different. By using feathers, I'm actually taking off a very good amount off the back, and these blazers, although they're completely awesome, they are a little bit heavy, especially when you compare them to feathers. So I ordered some reflective wraps that were about 6 inches, and I cut them in half. So we're using about a 3-inch wrap. That gives me just enough room for facial clearance and to accommodate the veins. And then I've got maybe a 1/16 of an inch of extra in front of the veins just to ensure that I get full contact. But it worked out pretty good, and let's go ahead and get to it. You want to make sure that your shaft is as clean as possible. Took a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and then we're going to let that dry. And then we'll put the wrap on afterwards. Okay, so the shaft is completely clean. We're going to put it down on the wrap, roll it, and the wrap will be installed. Okay, the wrap is installed. I'm going to go ahead and change the knock to our preferred knock. Alright, so we'll be using the Nockturnal. I use the red and blue flash. I think it looks really cool when you kill a deer and looks like there's like police lights down there. Alright, so we got a wrap installed. All you have to do is just put the knock in. Super easy. This is a small diameter shaft. It's not a micro diameter, but it is a smaller diameter, so the universal fit without any bushings or anything will just slide right in. Alright, now we're going to use our little nifty Fletching Jig. I switched out the back end component to where it's a 4-fletch, so you turn it 4 times to make a complete circle. They've also got 3, and then they've got a 4-fletch that's got a different pattern to it, but I wanted them equidistant to each other, so this is the one that I chose. So we've got our vane. We're going to load it up into this device. Get it the right marking. Okay, now that we got our feather in there, we're going to take our glue, and less is more when you do this. I'm going to put about 6 dots down the vane, and then I'll just rub it to where it's evenly spread. You do not want an excess amount of glue on this. Okay, and then we press and hold for about 20 seconds. While we're waiting on this to adhere, if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you're aware of when we post, and you'll be able to see all the cool videos that we come out with this fall. Alright, so that one is adhered. We're going to twist 1/4 turn and then do the exact same thing. So if your feathers do get wet in the stand, it could affect arrow flight. I got some feather dry powder that I'm going to apply to my veins, and that should take care of any reasonable rain. But if it's a complete downpour, then I'm either not going to be hunting or I'll cover my arrows. Okay, we'll take it out of the jig, and she is fletched up. Beautiful 4-fletch. We'll take just a little drop of glue and put it on the front end where the feathers meet the wrap. Okay, now we have a beautiful 4-fletch arrow cut to length, and now we need to install the spinning insert from FOC Archery. I tried some hot melt on this when I first tried it, and it worked, but after shooting it into the target several times, it actually came loose, and they recommend super glue over hot melt. And so that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to use super glue. So on this spinning insert, you want to make sure to not get glue on the front or back end of the spinning component, or it will gunk it up, and you'll have to break it loose, and I don't want to do that. So just be very careful when you apply the super glue. So I've got a little paper towel. I'm going to wad up the end of it, stick it into the shaft, and just twist it around a little bit. Some of that dust from cutting the arrow could be in there. Yeah, if you see that, there's a little bit of dust. So that's going to help with adhesion. We're going to Be very quick and careful about this. You want to put just a bare minimum amount of super glue on there. I'm only going to put 3 drops while I spin around. So one little dot in the middle here, and then 1 dot, and then 1 dot. And I'm going to kind of rub it around just slightly. And then you stick it in there, and you make sure do not spin it until it is dry. You're going to take this same paper towel and then wipe down and away from the spinning component if there's any excess, and there's just a little bit that came out there. But always wipe down. We're going to let that dry, and then when it dries, we'll test out the spinning, and the arrow is almost done. Okay, so once it dries, you're going to have your completed arrow. This is so cool that the shaft spins independently. The broadhead's not moving, and the shaft can spin. It just free floats, and there's supposed to be a lot of advantages to it. I've not studied it extensively, but it was interesting enough for me to purchase it and to experiment with it. Ethics has all kinds of great components, and the structural integrity was my main concern because it is a moving part, and I don't like moving parts. But with the way this arrow is going to go versus the way the part is independently free, I think it's going to be fine. And especially with this FOC driving the whole arrow, I think that this is going to be pretty awesome. And then I've got a 260 grain Tuffhead Meathead broadhead there on the end. So pretty gnarly. We're going to go ahead and calculate the FOC, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, I'm going to walk you through how to calculate the FOC of an arrow. It's not that difficult, but I feel a little bit scientific. I really need glasses. I don't know where mine are, but I'm going to borrow my dad's. All right, now that I've got my glasses on, I'm ready to do some science. Science! I feel like, oh gosh, I can't even see anything. He must be blind as a bat, because holy cow. All right. Got to keep the glasses on because we can't do science without it. Science. And I don't know where mine are. So here's our completed arrow. It weighs in at 676 grains. But the real question and the real reason I built this arrow, this specific arrow, is because of the FOC. So we're going to calculate the FOC and see where we're sitting at. I was aiming towards 30. I knew that it would be hard to hit, and I don't think that we're going to hit it. But if we're in the mid to upper 20s, I'm going to be very, very excited. All right, so how do you calculate this pesky FOC that everybody's talking about? It's a simple formula. I'm going to put it right here, and we'll walk through it together. So A stands for the balance point, and in order to find that, we're going to measure from the throat of the nock, not the end of the nock, but the throat of the nock to the balance point. And then whatever that number is going to be our A in the formula. So let's find the balance point. It's really simple. Just put your finger out and move the arrow back and forth until it is balanced on your finger. Somewhere right about there. Okay, so I'm going to grab that and make a mark, just a little dot, so we can measure. And then to get my A variable, I'm going to go from the throat of the nock, so where the string hits the nock inside there, and I'm going to measure all the way to this balance point. And we are sitting at, and that is 23 6/8, which is 23.75. I'm used to reading everything off the tape in eighths because I'm an official scorer, but I'll use decimals for y'all because it's a lot easier for for the
science, math.
Okay, so we found A, and now we've got to find L, which is the total length of the arrow. So again, you're going to go from the throat of the nock all the way to the end of your insert. You don't want to measure all the way to the end of your broadhead. The standard is from the throat of the nock to the end of your arrow without the point. So do not include the point. And that is 30 5/8, which is 30.625. So now that we've got L, which is 30.625, and we've also got A, which is 23.75, we can plug those figures into the formula, and then it'll tell us our percentage, which is our magical FOC. We've got the calculator ready, glasses mounted just perfectly on the nose, so I'm ready to do some math.
Science.
All right, so we're gonna plug this in. We've got 100 times A, which is 23.75, minus 30.625, divided by 2, and then divided by L again, which is 30.75. So that puts us at 27.4% FOC, which is what I was really kind of aiming for, is those high 20s. So I'm really happy with that. I would have been like bouncing off the walls if we would have got to 30, but with this wrap, and especially this lighted nock, it's just going to be basically impossible to get to that 30 with a practical setup. So I'm super happy with that. 27.4% FOC is just phenomenal, and I'm really excited about that number. If someone recommends what FOC to shoot for, I'd say 20%. That's a pretty good average number for decent FOC to see those advantages that come along with it. 27 is great. You knocked it out of the ballpark. If you can get over 30, then you're talking about super FOC. There's a lot of advantages with that ultra extreme FOC, but this is probably the most practical whitetail setup with the highest FOC that I could possibly do, except for this wrap. I think we would have got to 28, maybe even 29 without the wrap and the nock. Without the wrap and the nock, both, I think we would have shot over 30. But I can't live without a lighted nock, especially filming. So it was worth it for me to put that there. The wrap didn't make as big of a difference, but it does make a difference putting any weight on the back. And then we saved a ton of weight, about 20 grains by switching to feathers. So saving 20 grains on the vanes makes me feel okay using the lighted nock. The lighted nock is 25 grains, so it's not light. I mean, it's a chunk, but the advantages of it for filming and for locating your shot and everything, it's just, I'm not going to shoot an arrow without a lighted nock. But other than that, this is an absolute beast, and I cannot wait to use it. We've got a doe hunt coming up this weekend, and we're gonna shoot some deer. This place is overrun with does, and we're gonna get a shot. So I cannot wait to see what this does. It is just an absolute beast. 676 grains, which is about 24 grains lighter than last year. But as long as I'm over 650, I feel confident in it. So that's been our video today. I hope you liked it. Drop a comment down below what you think about this arrow, if you would ever shoot anything like this, or if you've ever built anything like this, trying to bump the FOC as high as you can. Go ahead and subscribe, like, do all that good stuff for the YouTube algorithm. And we're going to be bumping out some great videos really soon, and hopefully some big buck kills will follow. But I'm gonna take these glasses off because it's starting to give me a headache. These are not the right prescription for me. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.